Did Hollywood quietly bury some of the most honest war movies of the 1970s? These aren't the polished battlefield classics everyone keeps recycling. These are colder, stranger, angrier films. Stories of broken soldiers, cowardly officers, doomed missions, and governments hiding ugly truths. Today we're counting down forgotten 70s war movies that still hit hard. But one film at number 4 may be the masterpiece almost nobody saw coming. Number 15. Too Late the Hero, 1970. Some war movies chase glory. This one drags glory through sweat, panic, and jungle rot. Too Late the Hero throws us into the Pacific theater where survival feels less like bravery and more like punishment. The story follows reluctant Allied soldiers ordered behind Japanese lines on a mission that already feels doomed before it begins. That is the hook. These men are not mythic heroes polishing medals. They are exhausted, cynical, frightened, and trapped inside a war machine that keeps demanding more from people who have almost nothing left. Michael Caine and Cliff Robertson give the film a hard-edged tension, playing men who understand that command decisions often sound cleaner from a safe distance. What still holds up is the film's bitterness. It shows war as confusion, not choreography, as fear, not patriotic decoration. By the end, the title feels almost cruel because heroism arrives only after the damage is done. This is not a forgotten film because it was weak. It was forgotten because it refused to flatter war. Number 14. The Mackenzie Break, 1970. A prison camp should feel controlled until the prisoners start controlling the game. The Mackenzie Break is not a battlefield film in the usual sense, and that is exactly why it still works. Set inside a British POW camp holding German prisoners during World War II, the movie builds its tension through strategy, discipline, deception, and psychological warfare. Brian Keith plays the officer brought in to investigate unrest among the prisoners, while Helmut Grimm's German U-boat commander becomes the dangerous center of resistance. The film's power comes from the way it turns captivity into a chessboard. Every conversation feels like a coded message, every act of rebellion may be part of a larger escape plan, and every rule inside the camp becomes a weapon. It holds up because it understands that war is not only fought with tanks and rifles. Sometimes it is fought with patience, ego, loyalty, and nerve. The result is a tough, clever thriller that deserves far more attention than it gets. Number 13. Murphy's War, 1971. Revenge can keep a man alive, but it can also turn him into the last casualty of the war. Murphy's War gives Peter O'Toole one of his most intense, underrated roles as a merchant seaman who survives a German U-boat attack and becomes obsessed with destroying the submarine responsible. The setting is unusual and gripping, remote waters near South America, far from the famous European battlefronts where the war feels isolated, muddy, and strangely personal. Murphy is not leading an army. He is almost alone, wounded by trauma, driven by rage, and slowly narrowing his entire existence down to one target. That is what makes the movie hold up. It is less about victory than fixation. O'Toole plays him with charm, madness, stubbornness, and pain, making the audience question whether his mission is justice or self-destruction. The film's final impact comes from its bleak honesty. When war enters a man's soul, peace does not always know how to get him back. Number 12. The Last Valley, 1971. Before modern war films showed soldiers drowning in mud and madness, this forgotten epic buried an entire village inside religious violence and fear. The Last Valley takes place during the 30 Years' War, a brutal European conflict rarely explored in mainstream cinema. Michael Caine plays a mercenary captain, leading desperate soldiers through a land ruined by plague, hunger, and endless fighting, while Omar Sharif plays a teacher who stumbles upon a hidden valley untouched by destruction. The premise is haunting. What happens when a peaceful refuge is discovered by men who only know how to survive through violence? The film holds up because it treats war as a disease that spreads into every moral corner. There are no simple heroes here, only people bargaining with brutality to stay alive. Its historical setting gives it a strange freshness, while its questions feel painfully modern.
Can civilization survive when armed men need food, shelter, and obedience? The film's answer is grim, intelligent, and unforgettable.
Number 11. Slaughterhouse-five, 1972. This is not a war movie that marches forward. It breaks time itself because trauma does not move in a straight line. Slaughterhouse-five, adapted from Kurt Vonnegut's famous novel, follows Billy Pilgrim, a man unstuck in time after surviving the bombing of Dresden during World War II. Instead of presenting war as one clean narrative, the film fractures reality into memories, absurd visions, domestic scenes, and surreal science fiction detours. That unusual structure is exactly why it still holds up. It understands something many traditional war films avoid. The battlefield may end, but the mind keeps replaying the damage in strange, uncontrollable ways. The Dresden scenes give the film its historical weight, while the time-jumping style gives it emotional truth. It is odd, ironic, sad, and quietly devastating. Some viewers may expect a conventional anti-war drama and feel thrown off by its strange rhythm, but that is the point. Slaughterhouse-five does not simply show trauma. It makes the viewer feel trapped inside its broken logic. Number 10. The Dawns Here Are Quiet, 1972. The quietest war films often hit the hardest because they make you care before they make you afraid. The Dawns Here Are Quiet is one of the most powerful Soviet World War II dramas of the 1970s, yet many modern viewers outside its region still barely know it. The story follows a small group of young female anti-aircraft soldiers and their commander as they confront a German patrol in the forests. At first, the film gives these women personality, humor, dreams, and youth. Then the danger closes in, and the forest becomes a place of sacrifice. That emotional design is why the film still works. It does not reduce its characters to symbols. It gives them lives before asking them to face death. The contrast between natural beauty and wartime brutality creates a haunting atmosphere, while the performances keep the story deeply human. This is not just a forgotten war film. It is a reminder that history often remembers battles, but cinema can remember the people swallowed by them. Number 9. Massacre in Rome, 1973. Some war films show battles. This one shows bureaucracy turning murder into paperwork. Massacre in Rome is a grim, controlled, and deeply uncomfortable World War II drama built around the Nazi occupation of Rome and the real Ardeatine massacre. The story centers on the brutal retaliation ordered after a partisan attack killed German soldiers in the city. Richard Burton plays SS officer Herbert Kappler with cold restraint, while Marcello Mastroianni gives the film its moral weight as Father Pietro Antonelli, a priest trying to confront evil inside a system designed to crush mercy. What makes the film hold up is not spectacle, but pressure. Every scene feels like a moral trap, where names, numbers, orders, and deadlines slowly become instruments of death. It asks a terrifying question. How many ordinary steps does it take before a crime becomes history? The film is often overlooked because it is not fast or glamorous, but that is its power. It is a war movie about calculation, fear, and the silence surrounding mass violence. Quiet, severe, and haunting, it deserves rediscovery. Number 8. Operation Daybreak, 1975. A single assassination mission becomes a countdown where courage and consequences collide. Operation Daybreak turns the real Operation Anthropoid plot into a tense resistance thriller about the attempt to kill Reinhard Heydrich, one of the most feared Nazi officials in occupied Europe. The film follows Czech and Slovak agents parachuted into their homeland, where every safe house, whisper, and street corner could become a death sentence. What keeps the movie gripping is its refusal to treat resistance like clean heroism. These men are brave, but they are also isolated, hunted, and aware that one successful strike may bring terrible reprisals against civilians. The film builds suspense through uncertainty rather than noise. Its occupied Prague atmosphere feels cold, suspicious, and dangerous, and the final church siege remains one of its strongest sequences. What holds up today is the moral complexity. The mission matters, but the cost never disappears. Operation Daybreak is not just about killing a tyrant. It is about the terrifying price paid by people who decide that doing nothing is even worse. Number 7. Overlord, 1975. This forgotten D-Day film does not roar like an epic. It moves like a ghost walking toward the beach. Overlord is one of the most unusual British war films of the 1970s, blending a fictional story with real wartime archive footage to create something that feels half documentary, half dream. The film follows a young British soldier preparing for the Normandy invasion, but instead of turning him into a heroic symbol, it studies his fear, innocence, and growing sense that history has already chosen his fate. Its power comes from mood. Training grounds, troop ships, military routines, and battlefield images all begin to feel like parts of a machine carrying ordinary boys towards something enormous. The archive footage gives the film historical texture, while the fictional character gives it a human pulse. It holds up because it avoids the usual patriotic polish. There are no grand speeches begging for applause. There is only a young man moving closer to war while the viewer feels the shadow of D-Day approaching. Overlord is small, poetic, and devastatingly effective. Number 6. The Boys in Company C, 1978. Before Vietnam became a familiar movie genre, this film already understood the anger underneath the uniform. The Boys in Company C follows a group of young Marine recruits from boot camp into the chaos of Vietnam. And its strength is the way it watches idealism get stripped away piece by piece. At first, the men are shaped by discipline, shouting, drills, and the promise that military order will give their lives meaning. But once they enter the war zone, that order starts to look fragile, confused, and sometimes absurd. The film captures the 70s mood of distrust with sharp energy. Officers are not always wise, missions are not always clear, and survival often depends on instincts nobody taught in training. It is not as famous as later Vietnam classics, but it helped open the door for the darker wave of war cinema that followed. What still holds up is its rawness. The performances feel young, angry, and unsettled. The Boys in Company C is not perfect, but its frustration feels honest, and that honesty still cuts through. Number 5. Duck, You Sucker, 1971. Sergio Leone took the romance of revolution and blew it apart with dynamite, dust, and disillusionment. Duck, You Sucker, also known as A Fistful of Dynamite, may look like a Western at first, but underneath its operatic style is a brutal war story about political violence and the ordinary people trapped inside it. Rod Steiger plays a Mexican bandit who dreams of robbery, not revolution, while James Coburn plays an Irish explosives expert haunted by his own past. Together, they are pulled into the Mexican Revolution, where slogans sound noble, but the bodies pile up just the same. What makes the film hold up is Leone's cynicism. He does not mock revolution, but he refuses to romanticize it. Trains explode, armies march, friends betray one another, and peasants become fuel for ideas they barely control. Ennio Morricone's music gives the film tragic grandeur, but the story keeps dragging that grandeur back into dirt and blood. This is not a simple adventure. It is Leone asking whether history's great causes are ever clean. His answer feels bitter, beautiful, and unforgettable. Number 4. The Ascent, 1977. Here is the film almost nobody expects. The one that does not just show war, but freezes the soul. The Ascent, directed by Larissa Shepitko, is the perfect hidden masterpiece for this list because it won major critical respect, yet remains invisible to many mainstream viewers. Set in Nazi-occupied Belarus during winter, the story follows two starving Soviet partisans who leave their unit to search for food and are captured. From that simple setup, the film becomes something far deeper than a survival drama. Shot in stark black and white, it turns snow, silence, faces, and breath into weapons. One man is pushed toward moral collapse, the other toward a kind of spiritual endurance. What makes it hold up is its intensity without spectacle. There are no comforting battlefield thrills here, only hunger, fear, betrayal, interrogation, and the terrifying question of what a person is worth when every escape route disappears. Shepitko's close-ups feel almost unbearable, as if the camera is searching for the last spark of dignity inside human suffering. The Ascent is not easy viewing, but it is unforgettable cinema. Number 3. Twilight's Last Gleaming, 1977. This is the war movie where the battlefield is a government secret, and the weapon is the truth. Twilight's last Gleaming is a tense political thriller that channels the paranoia of the post-Vietnam era with frightening precision. Directed by Robert Aldrich, it follows a renegade American general who takes control of a nuclear missile silo and threatens to launch unless the president reveals a classified document exposing the cynical reasons behind the Vietnam War. That premise could have become pure melodrama, but the film plays it with icy seriousness. Its split-screen editing keeps multiple pressure points alive at once: the bunker, the White House, the military chain of command, and the men trying to calculate whether truth is more dangerous than a missile. What makes it hold up is how modern its distrust feels. The film understands that after Vietnam, audiences no longer automatically believed official explanations. Burt Lancaster brings authority and desperation to the central role, making the crisis feel both personal and national. This is not a forgotten thriller because it lacks power. It was simply too angry to age quietly. Number 2, Johnny Got His Gun, 1971. The most terrifying prison in this film is not built with walls. It is built from one man's own body. Johnny Got His Gun, written and directed by Dalton Trumbo, remains one of the most disturbing anti-war films of the 1970s because it removes almost every traditional war movie comfort. The story follows Joe Bonham, a young American soldier wounded near the end of World War I, who wakes in a hospital unable to see, hear, speak, or move normally, while his mind remains painfully alive. Instead of battle scenes, the film traps us inside memory, dream, confusion, and unbearable awareness. Joe drifts through childhood, romance, patriotic speeches, and surreal conversations, including strange moments with Donald Sutherland's Christ-like figure. What makes the film hold up is its absolute refusal to make sacrifice look noble. It asks what happens when war does not kill a soldier, but leaves him as living evidence against every speech that sent him there. Later generations discovered it through Metallica's One, but the film itself is even more devastating. It is not entertainment in the easy sense. It is an accusation. Number 1, Cross of Iron, 1977. Sam Peckinpah did not make a clean war movie. He made a mud-soaked argument against every lie war tells about honor. Cross of Iron stands at number 1 because it remains one of the most brutal, cynical, and strangely human war films of the 1970s. Set on the Eastern Front during World War II, it follows German soldiers who are exhausted, outnumbered, and trapped between Soviet attacks and their own collapsing command structure. James Coburn plays Corporal Steiner as a hardened survivor who has no patience for empty glory, while Maximilian Schell's aristocratic Captain Stransky obsesses over winning the Cross of Iron medal to satisfy pride and status. That conflict gives the film its lasting bite. The men in the trenches understand war as filth and fear, while ambitious officers still treat it as a ladder. Peckinpah's combat scenes are violent and chaotic, but the real shock is emotional. He strips away flags, speeches, and romance until only survival remains. Cross of Iron holds up because it refuses to make war inspiring. It makes it ugly, absurd, and impossible to forget. So which forgotten war film deserved the spotlight all along? Was it the frozen nightmare of the Ascent, the political fury of Twilight's last Gleaming, or Peckinpah's brutal Cross of Iron? Drop your pick in the comments, because some war movies don't fade with time. They wait for the right audience to finally discover them and argue about them again tonight.